So we're going to do a 3D print of a keyring with somebody's name on that somebody's asked for. So the first thing we need to do is bring in some text. The thicker the text you can get for 3D printing is really good. It's really effective. That's quite bold, but you know, there's some nicer fonts than that. Let's have a look what we got. Yeah, that's quite bold, and the arch bits are really smooth as well, which is good for 3D printing. When you're making a keyring, you've got to ungroup all the words. Just condensing them together won't work, because you can see there that I has got a gap in between the R and the P and the L, which when you're 3D printing, they'll just be separate items, they'll not be bunched together. So what you've got to do is you've got to ungroup them, you've got to convert them to objects so that you can ungroup them and move them closer together in a different way. Kerning them just is not good enough. So just convert them to shapes, ungroup them, and then you'll see that they're individual items. You can do this in Silhouette Studio as well, just exactly the same way as if you were making an SVG, release compound path, etc. So what we've got to do is just bring them as close as we can together. Now, because we're making a layered keyring, it doesn't matter that we're bringing these letters so close together. If we were just going to print it flat, that you would not know what that says, because the I and the P are completely joined. It just looks like a fat P. But because we're going to do a layered effect, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to select every other letter, group them, move them out of the way a minute so that I can quickly group the other three, and that's going to effectively be our tool layers. So to bring them into the 3D printing software, we need to save them as a PNG. 3D printing software is Microsoft 3D Studio, a 3D designer, well, can't even remember what it's called, 3D Maker or whatever. Don't import SVGs at all, so it's got to be a PNG, which is fine. So we just save them as two separate PNGs, and then we can bring them into the software. 3D designer program is, or 3D builder, that's it, is completely free if you've got Windows. I'm not sure if there's anything on the Mac. I've tried looking on the iPad, but they're just like silly prices per month. Anyway, so we just bring in the PNGs, just bring them in individually, and just accept when you bring them in, and there's your two files. So just arrange them so that it's back in line with the text. Just drag them down so that they're in a line, and then this one you can change the height, which is the effect that we want. So now you can see, because there's two layers, you can read that it says Ripley, whereas if there was all the same height, you wouldn't be able to read that. So it's a good way of joining text quite close, and it'll be a solid print as well. So what we've got to do now is we've got to make it the right size. At the minute it's 43 centimetres, which is way too big. I'm going to make it about 90, maybe 110, something like that. So what we do is you just click on the longest axis, group them all together so they all arranges together, and you'll see that it's just over 8 millimeters thick at the thickest part. So now what we need to do is we need to put in the hook that the keyring's going to go on. One way you can do it is to use the built-in torus, it's called. I'm showing you this because it's an option in here to use. It's quick, you don't have to mess about, but I personally don't like it because when you're 3D printing, the curve can sometimes need a support underneath it. Most often it doesn't, but you know, sometimes it can, and if you don't put supports underneath it, then print just drips everywhere, and it's not a good look. But because the text is quite bold, it's flat, it's straight edges, I'm going to use a flat straight edge key hoop. So we just bring in a cylinder, make it flat, and then we're going to copy that. We're going to bring in another cylinder, make it a little bit smaller so that we can cut the hole. We'll just change colours so that we can see what's what when we're aligning them together. So that's gone below, so now I'm just dragging it upwards to make sure that it's in the centre of that other circle. I think I might just make it a little bit smaller. Yeah, giving a bit of thicker edge to the hoop itself. So now what we need to do is we need to drag the yellow circle, the yellow cylinder through the blue one. Then we need to just subtract it from there. You can do this all in your vector program or in Silhouette. You can just make the whole thing together, but I find bringing the text in, arranging the text as thick as I want it, is the better option. So I want to be able to print that flat in line with everything else, but I don't want it to be a circle that's just stuck on the edge. But if I use it like that, it looks like it says cripply when you print it, because it's all going to be the same colour. So we just need to make that a little bit shorter so that it's more like a hoop than anything else. What you can do is, in the 3D software, you can subtract items from things just like you can in Silhouette or what have you. You can subtract, you can intersect. I'll just show you quickly what them effects are. So that's subtracted the every other third, so it's the R, P and E away from everything else. That's intersect that from that, which we don't want. So we need to group the text together, because we need to then subtract the hoop from the group of text. So group them together, and then what we're going to do is we're going to slice it, because if you intersect that, it just leaves you that, because you're intersecting that circle from the text. So what we need to do is we need to slice that hoop away from that. We need to slice the end off. So we select the hoop itself. There we're going. Select that. Go on to edit, split, and then we need to change the rotation. So at the minute it would just chop it horizontally, so we need to chop it vertically. So we just grab the handles at the side, and you can either do it manually like that until you think, you know, especially if you want it at an angle, or as you can see at the bottom, the numbers are going up. We know that we want it at 90 degrees, so we can just type in 90, hit enter, and it automatically does it. So now we can just move that guide across until it's inside there. Keep both parts. Sorry, keep the bottom, because at the minute it's keeping the top. Hit split, and that's the hoop. And I'll just put it onto X-ray mode so you can see how far inside that goes. Even though it's not going to print, because it's going to print as a whole, that hoop is not going to come off. It's not going to fall off. So that's how you make that kind of a keyring. So we just need to save it now as a print file, which the file format for standard most printers use is STL, and that'll print on virtually any machine. It'll print on the Alta, prints on my FlashForge. This is my FlashForge software, which is called a slicer. So you bring in the STL file. In most cases it will want to rectify any errors that's been added from the 3D Builder software, which I don't know what it does, but it must be in the code because it doesn't physically alter anything. As it is at the minute, that's too big, so I want to make it 90mm. And just type that in. No, we're gonna. There we go. That's more of a keyring size. If I was to print that side down, it would be flat on the front side. I'm going to print it, but the I and the L and the Y would be higher up and they would need support. So I've printed it so that everything's flat on the bottom. And then we're just going to, because it's the right size, the key hoop's going to fit. So we're going to printer software to choose the level of quality. So I'm setting it to a standard quality for this. This printer's got low, standard, high and hyper. I can't see any difference between the high and the hyper. It just takes a longer time to print. The main thing for 3D printers is the overlap perimeters. They're important. It doesn't need a raft, which is like a plastic base that it sits on. A brim it prints like an edge round it, which is quite good if you're printing a large box kind of shape. If you put a brim down, it kind of keeps the edges tacked down so that it doesn't lift up. So that's it. So I'm going to send it to print. It's going to take 34 minutes. I'm going to do another keyring for somebody else, and when I do that keyring, I'm going to do a time-lapse video so you can see it printing.